Some of our LZs and PZs were cold, which meant that our helicopters were not fired upon when landing, which was a great relief to us all. At some point, only half the LZs that we flew into were we fired upon. Although we usually did 4 LZs and PZs a day, so we were not out of danger, but it was a big improvement. But that did not mean that the infantry fellows we landed were not still in a lot of danger. I think most times the NVA-VC wanted to blow us all apart while the infantry was still on the helicopters. But it may have become too dangerous at times to attempt that tactic. We had 10 machine guns blazing away on each side of our flight from our slicks as we landed as first insertions in an LZ. Not to mention rockets from the gunships at times. That was pretty deadly fire for anyone shooting at us. Sometimes instead of shooting at the helicopters in the LZ, the NVA-VC, if they were there, let us fly away before they would attack the infantry fellows that we just landed. Once, as we were flying away from an LZ, I thought I spotted some bushes in a field about a mile from the LZ that I did not see before. We were flying about 800 feet up, and I told the AC what I saw and asked permission to check the bushes out by shooting into a few. He said okay, so I did. I never seen a field of bushes get up and run so fast. I think it was Harry Hetrick, another crew chief, who joined in the trimming of bushes with a machine gun. Many of the bushes had AK-47s and were fighting by shooting back at the trimmers. I believe some of the shooters were in the nearest tree line also. The firing was pretty accurate, and I knew we were getting hit by bullets by the ticks over the earphones. Just then, the AC and Peter pilot were having hydraulic flight control problems. Without hydraulic help, the flight controls of the aircraft were almost impossible to work with. Both pilots had to use all their strength together to fly the aircraft, and not too well at that. We had to end our flight fast before something let loose like the flight controls period. So down we went into a fairly close, somewhat open field. Harry's helicopter went down with us to pick us up, and another helicopter was up above keeping an eye on us. I figured where the trouble was and pulled off a panel on the inside of the helicopter in front of the transmission. That took about 15 seconds. Sure enough, one of the hydraulic lines going to the servo that serves the flight controls had a bullet hole leak in it. I always carried extra hydraulic hoses and some hydraulic fluid, as this hydraulic failure caused by bullets was fairly common. Harry came over and looked at the hose and agreed it probably could be fixed ASAP. It took Harry and I about 1 minute to change the hose and put more hydraulic fluid in the system. The pilots checked the controls and said no problem. Then Harry jumped in his helicopter, and both helicopters were back in the air in less than 5 minutes. This kind of immediate mechanical repair can mean the life or death of everyone on the helicopter, especially when the helicopter is flying alone. All good crew chiefs carried spare parts, tools, and extra hydraulic, transmission, and engine oil fluids. By feeling weird vibrations, sounds, and checking flight gauges, we could usually tell what kind of mechanical problems are occurring in flight. After hearing ticks over the earphones indicating bullets hitting the aircraft, crew chiefs go into a super sensitive feel of what the aircraft is doing. Does everything seem normal or not? Many bullet holes go through the floor and do damage to the JP-4 fuel cells located underneath. The fuel cells will sort of plug up to an extent as far as leaking goes, as they are made of some sort of rubber. I often wondered if the fuel cell would catch fire or blow up if a tracer round hit it. Altogether, I have had at least 8 bullet holes go through the fuel cells on my helicopter, and I still don't know the answer to my question, although the helicopter did not blow up or catch fire. The bullet holes come up through the floor and hit people or whatever. Once, an infantry sergeant who was leaning against me when we were flying into Daoting was shot in the lower spine area after the bullet went through the floor next to my foot. We were flying low and in formation coming into the base camp with loads of infantry when several helicopters were shot up from directly underneath, just about 70 yards outside of the base camp. Daoting was always a dangerous place, and we should never have come in so low. Just another foolish decision by our company commander that cost lives of some more young soldiers. Anyway, the infantry fellow leaning against me was a big guy, but when he got hit by the AK-47 round, he went flying up off the seat and landed on top of some infantry fellows sitting on the floor of the helicopter, nearly knocking them out of the helicopter. I don't know if it was the inertia of the bullet that sent him flying or not. He was screaming bloody murder and was going wild, kicking and punching his own guys. We were already over the base camp when this was happening, so I had no time to shoot back at anything, which I never saw anyway. I went to the aid of the guys on the floor and grabbed the wounded guy so he wouldn't knock anyone out of the helicopter, and to calm him down and look for the exit point of the bullet so I could patch him up. He started fighting me wildly and nearly threw me out of the helicopter. It was a real wrestling match. My gunner helped me with the crazy guy. We landed and all the infantry fellows jumped off the helicopter, and no one seemed concerned about the crazy wounded guy. Maybe no one liked him. Who knows? My helicopter continued to the field hospital that was in the base camp. My gunner and I tried to get him out of the helicopter, and in so doing dropped him on the ground by accident as he was still struggling. Then the medics came out and took him away on the stretcher. He was fighting us until we dropped him on the ground. Later we heard the bullet severed his spine so that he was paralyzed from the waist down. My gunner and I knew he was fighting against us until we dropped him, and then he stopped struggling. Even though we dropped him by accident, we felt guilty that the drop caused his spine to separate. Oh well. The flight lifted off and circled so that we were at a higher elevation, leaving Daotiang. All machine gunners were on alert more than usual. Leaving the perimeter, I saw smoke in some trees about 70 yards out and started shooting at it. A few other gunners did the same. Who knows what it was? Maybe only a campfire. But in some places, campfires were used to cover up automatic weapons shooting at us without tracers. NVAVC never seemed to use tracers in the daytime shooting at helicopters. It gave their positions away, and they were all about camouflage and hiding until they had a distinct advantage over their enemy. It was they who initiated 98% of the battles. And the poor isolated infantry units, special forces camps, and fire support bases were the brunt of their attacks, and mostly at night and mostly toward the Cambodian border.